Hey, and welcome to Public Speaking for Artists. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to prepare yourself to speak more confidently in front of people that you don't know. And so, the first thing we need to do is to define what I consider public speaking. For me, public speaking is speaking in front of an audience, but it can also be networking events or podcast workshops or classes, especially if this participation could be beneficial for your career. And why public speaking is important for artists is that being able to communicate clearly and effectively can help grow our circle of support. It can help us make sales, and it can also help us feel more confident and more enthusiastic when we are able to connect with other people about our work and about ourselves. So, who am I to be talking to you about public speaking? So, my name is Andrea Junker, and I'm a mixed media artist in Barcelona. I'm secretly very, very shy, but over the last 13 years, I've been working as a public speaker and also training people to speak in public, but mostly in corporate environments. So I would like to use that experience in order to help artists like me, people maybe who are also more introverted, to speak in public successfully. So, what to expect from this video? Because this is going to be a quick video, we're only going to focus on a few things today. So first, I'm going to help you build an introduction, a way that you can introduce yourself at both networking events and when you're speaking in front of others. This is essential so that you can kind of present yourself in a positive way, and when you get positive feedback, you're going to feel more confident. Also, I'm going to help you with managing and mitigating stress and anxiety before, during, and a little bit after an event. And also how to deal with some internal distractions, like um, the most common distractions that we have, like losing our train of thought or when dealing with questions. So before we begin, I want you to think about what scares you about public speaking, if it does. What worries you? Did you have a bad experience in school? I know a lot of us did. Or just in general, are you just nervous? Think about these things. But one thing I want to tell you that will hopefully make you feel a little bit better is that you are the best authority on yourself and your work. This means that you are special. Have expertise that nobody else has. So when you speak to other people, there's no way that they can deny what you're saying. And so building a kind of authority and knowing that your authority on yourself and on your work can really help us to speak more confidently and have people interact with us in a different way. So working on this introduction, who are you? So for all social situations, we have our introduction, my name is, I'm from, but when dealing with a kind of an artist introduction, maybe when you're going to a networking event, um, it should really be clear and concise. Around or less than 2 minutes is best. And use a positive and active but as accessible language. So when I say positive and active, I mean words like I am, I do, rather than I try and I hope, but also to be accessible, meaning that it is appropriate for all audiences. So I can speak to my grandmother who has a strong interest in art, or I can speak to my dad who's an engineer and doesn't understand anything, and be able to bring them in and to have them understand what I'm talking about. So how should we do this? First, quickly brainstorm how you would introduce yourself in a friendly environment. So maybe a friend's cocktail party, barbecue. Um, But also, how do you want to introduce yourself? But for me, it was really, really hard to get to a point where I could say, I'm an artist and not kind of push art to the side like, oh, but I'd like to be. Think about how you want to introduce yourself. Now, write down words that describe you, your art, your motivation, and elicit help from somebody else if you maybe can't trust yourself to be 100% kind. Once you have this kind of word cloud, you begin to put it into a short introduction. And with this short introduction, you're going to record yourself and listen to it. This isn't going to be the final draft just yet, so don't work on it too much. Just record yourself and see, is it too long, is it too short, does that sound too negative? And just go and listen to it. It's going to be painful listening to yourself, a recorded version of yourself. It sucks, but you'll get used to it, I promise, and you'll feel really comfortable after you work with this. Now, come up with kind of a final draft. And with this final draft, you want to treat it as almost like a script, like you're preparing for a play. So introduce yourself to your cat, to your washing machine, to the mirror, but also to a camera, to your partner, to your friends, so that you're getting a little bit of feedback, because you don't want to be an art robot. This needs to be a fluid, functional, living introduction that you feel comfortable with. And it needs to be true to you. So make sure that it's true for you. And this idea of brainstorming and these kind of techniques that I talked about with your introduction can also be applied if you've been asked, congratulations, to do a larger speaking event. So the thing that's really important to think about in terms of speaking is that creativity thrives within limits. And so you need to outline your specific goal for speaking. And this isn't your topic. This is the goal. Are you trying to build community? Are you trying to educate? Are you trying to make sales? What is your specific goal? What would you say to support that goal? Once you have kind of a list of things that would support that goal, then you can begin to really work on your topic. Also, too, you want to write down common and possible questions about your work or about you. I get asked quite a bit about my accent because it's pretty non-standard. And so, having a response to that gets you prepared. And this, quite honestly, even if you're not speaking in front of an audience, this is a great exercise in order to be able to clearly communicate with others who you are and what your art means. Now, when you speak in front of others, sometimes you get to know who the audience is, but this is quite honestly a luxury that not everybody has. So if you are building a larger script, keep your language neutral in the beginning. What I like to do is also to think about concepts that maybe I need to explain more if I'm overestimating the knowledge of my audience, and also to how I could expand on a topic if I'm underestimating my audience. This gives me a lot of flexibility. This is something that I've learned to do very quickly from teaching for many years. And so it is a kind of a skill to learn, but it's a very, very helpful exercise so that you always can kind of adapt to the audience in front of you. Now, you've probably heard practice makes perfect, but perfection is a myth. And preparation is our friend. We want to be prepared, but over preparation is not. Don't get so stressed or attached to the exact words that you become nervous and that you become rigid and you become stiff and it becomes difficult to connect with you. Because really, communication is about connection. So Preparation is your friend, but over preparation is not. Now, how do you feel when speaking in public? Mm, I don't know about you, but I spend a lot of time alone or with my cat, and if I'm not prepared, I'm really socially awkward. But here's a time when we, as artists, actually have a stereotype on our side, so we can be a little weird, so that's okay. So we shouldn't be too critical of ourselves if we're having an off day. But mitigating the stress and anxiety that we feel when in social situations can really affect our communication of our message. And so we want to mitigate that so that we can be more successful. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next few slides. So before an event. Now, this could either be you speaking in public or networking event. I always have to psych myself up if I know that I'm going to try to leave the house and go to some kind of art event. So I definitely practice this. So practice breathing exercises and meditation. This is a skill that comes in handy in all aspects of our life, but it's also really helpful for when you're in a stressful situation. We tend to start to feel like we're unable to breathe. And so learning how to meditate and learning how to breathe makes it a lot easier for us to calm ourselves down. And then also, if we are speaking in front of a larger audience, I've had to speak in front of very large groups without a microphone. Having the ability to project your voice successfully is also a really great benefit of breathing and meditation practice. Also, I recommend doing heart opening stretches and exercises that strengthen the core and the upper back. Now, I also studied to be a yoga teacher, so yoga is my go-to for this. But the reason I recommend this is because having an open and a strong posture helps us to feel a lot more positive about what we're saying, positive about ourselves, and it also makes us a little bit more open because bad posture can and this contraction that we might feel, which I'm doing right now, even though you can't see me, is, it starts to kind of constrict the chest area and, is not very comfortable. There is a really great TED talk by a woman named Amy Cuddy that talks about power poses and this idea of taking up space and doing these powerful postures that can increase our confidence and reduce stress. And like she says, you can fake it till you make it. And she shows us how. So why not? Why not try? And I've used it and I feel like that it has worked for me. Now, the day of the event. Now, maybe try to set a small goal. Depending on the type of event, you might be able to say, I will speak to 5 people. This could be talk to 5 people about the weather, right? Or it could be say hi to 5 people. Just meet yourself where you're at that day. I have days where I'm kind of a bumbling mess, and I have other days where I'm a little bit uh, more chatty. And I adjust my goal according to that. Also, if you're speaking in front of others, making eye contact with people, that's one of the most difficult things to learn in public speaking. And so just saying I'll make eye contact with 3 people is fine. I also recommend doing some light exercise, eating healthy food, avoiding large amounts of sugar or caffeine, and also being careful with alcohol or anti-anxiety medication because these can actually act as depressants and can make you feel like you did a terrible job after the fact when you actually were great. So just be careful with things that might skew your perception of your own performance. And of course, wear something appropriate but comfortable, but I definitely recommend something with nice big pockets. And we'll talk about why here in just a little bit. Now, day of, if you're a speaker, I definitely recommend that you arrive early to assess the space. think about where you're most comfortable, at home, or right now I'm in my studio. And so you want to make the space where you'll be speaking as comfortable as if you were in those spaces that you feel the most comfortable with. Some people go on the stage or go to the area where they will be speaking and kind of visualize having a positive experience there. For me, I kind of just dance and kind of move around and stretch just to kind of feel the air and to kind of warm it up to my energy. That sounds very hippie, but it after years of practice, it seems to work. I also recommend testing any technology if you're running a PowerPoint or anything like that, of course. But also, if you're not used to being mic'd, I recommend practicing with a mic before everybody arrives. Having your voice amplified can be very shocking and very uncomfortable in the beginning. And so, getting that out of the way beforehand is really a good idea. Also, try out any chairs. If you're going to be on a chair, make sure you're not going to fall in the middle of it. I mean, that really lightens the mood, but still. And also being aware of if it's got a swivel. I am a fidgeter, and I know that if I am given a swivel chair, I will swivel. But this can be used to our advantage. If we're being interviewed, for example, we can really orient ourselves towards our interviewer and then orient ourselves towards our audience. And so we can use this as to our advantage as part of our body language. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get into a lot of body language in this video, but maybe in future videos I will. Now, like I said, what I do is I kind of dance, but I want you to kind of stretch out, own your physical space, but also own the intellectual space. Like I said, you are the number one authority on your work and yourself. And even if you're not speaking on a stage in front of other people, that air around you at a gallery opening, that's yours. So feel that, enjoy it. That's your space. Now, during an event, and this can be for networking or speaking, breathe. Just try to breathe. Make sure you're breathing if you notice that you're holding your breath. I have that tendency. Go outside or go to the toilet if you need a moment to yourself. Just be careful of too many smoke breaks because they can start to act like a stimulant and you can get the jitters. Check in with your body language. Is your chest open and your shoulder blades back? I just checked in with mine and I was starting to hunch, and it definitely affects how I feel and how easily the words come out of my mouth. Now, I will tell you that regardless of whether it's networking or, speaking in front of public, you will not know what to do with your hands. They will feel very, very strange. So, why I recommend having pockets in what you're wearing, and usually pockets that are dissimulated a little bit, is to maybe put a small stone or a crystal or whatever you want, something that doesn't make noise in your pocket that you can kind of rub when you feel the need to fidget. This is, according to a lot of public speaking people, this is a big no-no to have something in your pocket, have your hands in pocket. I'm not saying that you slouch with your hands all the way in the pockets, but just occasionally when you need to fidget. I know for myself that if I have a clicker or if I have a pen, I'm going to fidget a lot. So just having something small and quiet in my pocket can really help me kind of calm down, and also really it doesn't take away from my message, which is the most important thing anyways. Now, what if you lose your train of thought? Don't worry. I mean, everybody does. Just ask where you were in your conversation. All of us get a little bit off track every now and then, and it's not a big deal. But maybe you get really, really blocked and you need a second to think. If that's the case, then go ahead and ask a question of the audience or the interviewer. Are you familiar with my medium, for example? Do you know this artist that has influenced me? This can really help give you a few seconds while they respond to think about where you were or what direction you want to go, and you can also use their answer as a jumping off point. Some speakers, because there are a lot of styles of speakers, some speakers build this technique in to their speaking style. So there is a constant audience interaction, so they never really get blocked. And they also have that they can be a little bit more flexible with what they're talking about because they can talk about the things that interest their audience the most. Also, if you're going to be accepting questions at the end, I really recommend setting a very limited number of questions. Say, I'll only be taking 3 to 5 questions this evening. Now, you can break your own rule if the questions are great, but when you set a really low limit, like 3 to 5, people are more likely to ask you higher quality questions. They're less likely to ask you things that are kind of rambling. It may still happen, there are ways to deal with that, but you're probably more likely to get higher quality questions if you set a really low number. And then if the quality of the questions is high, you can continue, you can break your rule. Or those people that might have a question that they're not sure about, they can approach you individually. Also, answer questions honestly. I don't know, and I'm not sure are honest answers. And you can say that you'll get back to someone, but you honestly don't really owe anyone anything. And this is especially true if people are asking questions that are too personal or just inappropriate or completely off topic. There's a lot of ways to deal with that. And so trying to deal with that in the beginning stages of brainstorming and being aware of what you would say in certain situations can be a real help. But there's also other ways to deal with these kinds of things. Now, own your inner weirdo. This is one of the few times that we have stereotypes on our side. We can be a little bit odd, but also, quite honestly, we see ourselves as odder than other people do. YouTube is full of terrible in some ways, but super successful speakers, like David Byrne from the Talking Heads, for example, is a very odd speaker, but very entertaining in his own way. Just as long as you're authentic, true to yourself, and presenting your message in the way that you want to. Now, after the fact, how'd you do? Now, if you had been speaking in front of people, there might be a recording or a video. Now, watch this as soon as possible. You're going to hate it, but watch it as soon as possible and get it over with. And try not to be too critical, but write down maybe 1 or 2 things that you would like to work on in the future regarding your physical presence. So this could be voice projection, this could be body language, your hands, anything like that. But only 1 or 2. Don't tear yourself apart. But also ask yourself, did your message connect? Step outside of it being you and think, did my message connect? Did I reach that goal that I had set for myself in the beginning? Was I persuasive in terms of sales? Did I connect with my audience? And really, just be proud of yourself that you went and that you tried and that you set goals and maybe you didn't meet them, but you know what, you did it and you went and spoke to other people, which quite honestly, as much as being an artist is a solitary activity, we all know that it actually does require meeting and getting to know other people. And a lot of us find that difficult, but congratulations for trying. Now, if you'd ever like to get in contact with me, if you'd ever like to talk about personal coaching, or if you have any direct questions or requests for other videos like this, you can contact me at the following places. So my website or Instagram or even my email. Thank you so much for your time and good luck with everything, and tell me how you're doing and tell me if this has helped you. Thank you so much.